Okay, thank you, Liz. My name is Adam Erlebacher, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the politics of access. And this is a concept that I really started thinking about after hearing Paula Ledoux speak at last year's Power to the Pixel. She talked about the toolkit that filmmakers have at their disposal when they endeavor to make a film. And one of the aspects of that toolkit are relationships. And relationships are really everything, especially when you're talking about getting access to financing. So relationships are really even more important today. It's a very challenging time to be making films. And it's not just challenging for the indies, it's also challenging for the big studios. It's very difficult to be raising money, especially on the indie side, now that the private equity money that has been financing sort of the burst in India for the last few years has now all but dried up. I also hear that there's been a financial meltdown, so I don't think that that's really helping us at this point. So the other thing that we notice is that when you're looking at what the web has done for us as filmmakers, it's been fantastic as a promotional and distribution vehicle, but it really hasn't done very much to provide us with access to the relationships that allow us to find financing and production relief for our projects. And so what I'm going to focus on is brand financing and support and some of the new ways that filmmakers can now find access to this and some of the new tools that are democratizing access to these relationships. So what I'd like to do specifically is talk about what brand integration is and what it isn't. Some people call brand integration brand entertainment. There are lots of different terms sort of floating around. This is all just very new. But it's important to talk about what it is and is not. We'll talk a little bit more about why marketers are now interested in this and not yesterday, and how filmmakers can work with brands. So I bring this up because obviously this is the question that everybody wants answered. And I guess I'd just cut to the chase. But I really am bringing this up for a different reason. When we all think about brand integration, we think about product placement. And here's a little bit I don't know how many folks are familiar with 30 Rock, but it's a popular TV series in the States. And here's Tina Fey sort of mugging to the camera saying, after pitching Verizon Wireless, asking for her money directly from the camera. So, I guess my point here is really that brand integration is really not just about product placement. There are many other things. So of course there's in-kind product placement, where as a filmmaker you can get free use of products, services, or locations, and that's important. And then its close cousin is paid product placement, which is essentially the same process, but you're getting cash payment for it. But there are other available options. So promotions are a great way to extend your reach by working with, for example, a retailer. And I'll take one example, which is 7-Eleven, a convenience store in the States. And they did a deal with The Simpsons, where they actually remade 7-Elevens into Quickie Marts to really bring the sort of film offline. So it's very creative, and really you're only limited by your own creativity there. Another way to work with brands is through sponsorship, and that can include any number of offline events. You can find a brand sponsor for your premiere, other events. You could also find brand sponsorship for streaming of your content. Four-Eyed Monsters did a great job of that last year with working with Spout, and they received $1 for every registration that they drove to Spout. So you're really only limited by creativity here. One other point is that for these latter two, it doesn't require physical integration of products into the content itself. So you don't actually have to do this while you're shooting. You can look at these options sort of after as well. And actually, integration spending goes mostly to sponsorship. So if you look at sort of how it all breaks down, event sponsorship and marketing takes the vast majority of spend. Paid product placement takes a small but growing portion. And when you take a closer look at product placement, and these are actually US numbers, but when you take a look at paid product placement, it's $2.9 billion, but it makes about 40% of the greater pie. When you look at in-kind, the pie grows much larger. And it's important to note that if you can find in-kind product placement, it's just as important as getting cash, because the cash budget is essentially fungible. So if you're able to work with a brand and get a car for a week of shooting, and you don't have to pay for it, then that's an extra day of editing or filming that you can add on. So again, why are marketers interested? Marketers are interested because they face many challenges also. There's fragmentation of their media, so it's very difficult for them to actually find their audience. There's lots of advertising clutter, so it's hard to actually deliver those messages. So they're still looking for ways to substantively connect to their audiences. And when you look at budgets, they're beginning to shift away in a sort of accelerating pace away from traditional print and broadcast and into alternative sources such as, or alternative content, including film and elsewhere. And when you just put some numbers to it, you can see that in the US, advertising budgets are massive. And when you look at the cost to create a negative, and these are the specialty and classic divisions of MPAA companies in the US, it's very small, and there's obviously lots of room for ad spending to sort of flow into these new alternative means. So how can filmmakers work with brands? Well, it's important that filmmakers obviously pursue relieving or recouping their production costs, but it's important not to look at brands solely as cash machines. You can obviously tap into brands' audience to find your own audience, and the brand's audience are their customers. And obviously, brands are very good at marketing their products to us. We all buy products. So it's important for filmmakers to look at that sort of marketing machinery and say, hey, this is something that they're very good at, and I can leverage that as well. And then I'll just briefly touch on realism and texture. I mean, I don't want to make too big a deal out of this, but when you think about Blue Velvet, Frank Booth wanted PBR. He didn't want Heineken. So these are the things that that can really add some sort of realism and texture to your characters. One local example of integration is Somerstown, and they're working with Eurostar. This was actually produced by Mother Vision, which is a department of the ad agency Mother. They were able to connect Eurostar to the acclaimed director Shane Meadows, and the film was fully financed by Eurostar. However, it's really important to point out that Shane set up the parameters very early on before even agreeing to do this project. He said, look, I'm not going to show any smiling train drivers in this film. And he set those expectations up front, and he said, I'll have 100% control of this film, and if that changes, I'm going to walk away from this project. So the film doesn't actually include any Eurostar branding, but the new station and the train plays a very sort of central role in the story. And the film went on to win a number of awards, and you can see it in London now. So what matters to brands? It's fairly simple, and Slava touched on this before. Obviously, it's about compelling entertainment, and once you have a compelling story and compelling content, everything else sort of flows directly from that. As far as audience is concerned, there are lots of different options for expanding distribution, and there are going to be some great presentations this afternoon that talk about how you can build your audience. But if you've built your audience, it shows that you can connect to people and that your content speaks to people, and that's an important signal. And then finally, a track record of success. And a track record of success doesn't mean that you've gone on and won awards at all the film festivals. It might just mean that you've built up a channel on YouTube that's getting thousands of views. Your community is active, commenting, providing video responses. So it's just important that you've shown that you've been able to connect. So how do you build these brand relationships today? So there are three real sort of ways to do that. First is you can cold call or email brands, and I'm sure many of you have done that. It's a fun process. It's a little tedious, but if you're able to find some financing or production relief, it's obviously well worth the effort. Second, you can hire an advertising agency or a product placement consultant. These folks will help find brands. You'll pay them a retainer, and they'll also take a percentage of any deals that they're able to negotiate on your behalf. And third is you can use a technology platform, and I'm just going to focus on that because that's what we do, and I can provide a little bit more insight into that. So to this third point, my company, Placefine, is essentially a networked information service that helps connect content producers to brands and agencies that are looking for brand integration deals. It's very simple. It's free for content creators, and content creators can post their projects, list out the various opportunities that they have in their films or outside of their films, and those get syndicated out to brands and agencies that subscribe to our service. So we make our money by working with brands and agencies, charging them subscription fee. If you have any questions about that, we can talk about it later. Send me an email, adam@playsfun, and I'll be around the conference. So how to prepare, again, echoing Slava's words of wisdom, start early. And 2 weeks before principal photography is not early enough. You really have to start a few months up in advance because brand cycles and their planning process does take that much time. And if you don't want to handle it yourself, you should definitely find someone else who's business-minded to lead the brand outreach effort. Because it does take time and it takes some focus, and it's really worthwhile if you do it right. And third is to set marketer expectations up front. And that's what I was really trying to highlight with Shane and Summerstown. It's really important to set expectations with the brands so that they understand the parameters of how the relationship is going to work. And those are really the sort of points that I want to share with you today. I think that there are some really great opportunities for the entertainment world to work with brands and agencies, and really we hope that our platform can help sort of increase that collaboration and transparency so that more and better content can be created for audiences. So thanks very much.